Mel Kiper selects two players for the San Francisco 49ers in the first and second rounds. And how much does he truly know about the 49ers? We're going to discuss all that and much more right here, Locked on 49ers. Let's go.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On 49ers. I am your host, flying solo today, this morning on Locked On 49ers. Eric Crocker here. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Crocky209. As you can see, no Brian Peacock this morning, but we're still going to talk some 49ers. And I'm excited, man. This mock draft season, big time now. I think, for the 49ers, mock drafts probably started in December, November, right? That season was it was over pretty early. But now we're really diving into the thick of things because we're a couple weeks away from the draft. And this is a hot discussion. I'm seeing mock drafts every single day from some big name people. And this one in particular, I just had to thought, does this guy truly know what's going on with the 49ers? Now, as someone who lives, breathes, and talks about the 49ers 24/7, it's pretty easy for me to kind of call out certain things, but I'm going to give Mel Kiper a little pass because I do think he was somewhat on the right track. Just certain things he said that I'm like, he doesn't quite know that the guy that he took isn't as big of a need. Now, if you're saying, hey, man, you shouldn't be drafting for need, you should be drafting for best player available, then maybe he's still on the right track. So we're going to discuss his first round pick and all right. But first, let's go to the chat, man. We see Mr. Olight in the chat. Big Dez. Shout out to my guy Jason Aponte in the chat. All right, we got Jonathan. I'm not even going to try to butcher your last name. Actually, I'll attempt at this. Jonathan Kovac? Kovac? There we go. All right, Kovac. Not Kovac. Kovac. All right. He says, wow, I actually get to see you guys live. Well, you get to see Eric Crocker live. You don't get to see Brian Peacock as he's not here right now. But Thursday's episode, he will be on here live, of course. But let's talk about it. The first pick that Mel Kiper selected for the San Francisco 49ers, out of Michigan, cornerback Will Johnson. All right, now, here's what he had to say about Will Johnson, and we'll discuss Will Johnson. We'll discuss the player. We will discuss his fit with the 49ers and potentially what his role is with the Niners. All right, but this is what he had to say. There's well-documented roster turnover in San Francisco right now, and Javarius Ward is among those departures. Obviously, Javarius Ward, he was an all-pro cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers, played very well during his tenure with the Niners, but of course, he's not here anymore. All right, but he goes on to say, Renardo Green has one of the outside starting spots, but what will the 49ers do at the other? Now, this is the part where he has to look into 32 teams. So, and Diamador Lenore is a guy that has played a lot in the nickel, and I think he created a lot of value. But we also know, he's played outside and inside. All right, but he went on to say, could slot guy Diamador Lenore move outside? Will new signee Trey Brown earn the role of playing outside if he can stay healthy? Or could this be a golden chance to land a potential shutdown CB1 in Johnson? Johnson missed time last season with a toe injury, and he slid from the top 5 to number 12 overall on my big board. But the talent is undeniable. He's big, 6'2", and his instincts and ball skills show up in the box scores. He had 9 interceptions over his career at Michigan, including 2 pick sixes last season. Saw one of those at Fresno State. And the 49ers had a total of 11 interceptions a year ago, tied for 19. So 49ers clearly a team that needs to figure out a way to attack the ball a little bit more, pick off more passes, get a guy that can create turnovers, and he feels like Johnson is that guy. Now, again, where I think he's just a little wrong on Johnson, not Johnson, but the 49ers. Like Diamador Lenore, he plays outside. He's an outside cornerback that can slide into the nickel. I think sometimes, whether it's ESPN guys or others, when you see a cornerback that's, he's 5'10", he's not the biggest guy, little squatty, 190 something pounds, like, oh, that's a nickel. No, Diamador Lenore, he's an outside guy that can play in the nickel. Now, if you have another outside cornerback, then maybe Diamador Lenore could play primarily in the slot. And does that help your secondary overall? I think it does if you can figure out a way to be better than Diamador Lenore, and being better, that's not going to be an easy task. Like this, he's good. Diamador Lenore is a legit outside starting cornerback. I think that's where he created his value in getting the contract that he did. So the 49ers, they're not just trying to get Diamador out in there and say, oh man, we have this lacking need on the outside corner. But again, like you said, man, Renardo Green, he was terrific as a rookie. I think he played well and definitely earned a starting spot. He's going to be starting on the outside. Can they get him out of number 31? Because I think that kind of changes how he's viewed a little bit. All right, get him in a single digit or number 20 or something like that. All right, have him looking sweet out there. But you got Renardo Green, you got Diamador Lenore. I don't mind Trey Brown and what he is, but that's not a guy that I want to rely on. Although cornerback is not a huge need for the 49ers, if you're going best player available and trying to make your team better, I don't mind the pick Johnson at all, especially when you look at what Mel Kiper did in round 2. So we're not going to get to that yet, but round 1, Will Johnson, what is he? He talked about, man, he's a 6'2 cornerback. He's athletic. He does a lot of really good things. One thing you don't see a whole lot on this film is him being like just this press man corner. Now, that's not saying he can't. You just don't see it a lot. And Michigan hasn't been a team that asked their guys to do a whole lot of press man consistently, at least not last year when you watch Johnson's film. He's definitely a guy that played a little bit more off coverage, zone reading concepts, reading keys, triggering. But he showed, especially for his size, a certain level of fluidity, change of direction, his ability to turn and run with guys. I talk about turn and run. We don't know exactly how well he runs. All right. We don't know what his 40 time is. He didn't run a 40. And that's always a little worrisome. There's some guys that just decided not to run. I think Travis Hunter, he's another guy. Now, Travis Hunter, he just looks faster. How fast is he? Is he a 4.45 guy, 4.47? Like, you'd be fine with that. He's quick, he's fluid, all those things. Will Johnson plays a different style if we're talking about just at corners, where I feel like Hunter relies more on athleticism. He might even be a low 4.4 guy. All right. But he relies more on just pure athleticism, where Will Johnson seems to be a little bit more just technical. All right. And if you're talking about Hunter and relying on athleticism, we watched his pro day. He worked out as a receiver, and it didn't look like a receiver. It looked more like an athlete playing receiver. And that's kind of what he is at corner as well. Well, Will Johnson is a little bit more of a technician. When you watch his feet, his transition in and out of breaks. And I think when you look at him, he's wearing that number 2. He's tall. He's 6'2", has some good weight on him. He reminds you a little bit of Patrick Surtain. Now, Patrick Surtain in college was more of a press man guy. And he was very, very, very consistent with his technique. He didn't look overly quick, overly fluid, but he went and tested very well. So at least you knew you had that. Yeah, a 6'2 corner, around 208 to 210 pounds. He went and ran very well, low 4.4s, if not high 4.3s. All right, so Patrick Surtain, he checked off all the boxes, where Johnson, you just don't quite know exactly what his long speed is. Now, does that hinder him in any sense of where he's at? Well, like Mel Kiper said, man, he was my number 5 player on my draft board, and with the injuries, missing some time, certain things, man, he's falling to 12. I'd still take a top 12 player in this class. I think the bigger question is, what is the difference between the top, let's say 9, and then like from 12 to 20 and those kind of prospects? So in this class, where people aren't considering it a huge or great class, is he someone who, you value a lot at 11? Is he someone where you would say, you know what, I would like him at 17, 18. Maybe I would try to trade back if I can. If that's the case, then all right, maybe try to move back. And I think there's other guys in the same kind of tier as Johnson, but in the sense of just what he brings to the 49ers, and why Mel Kiper drafted him. If you told me, man, I'm getting a long-term outside corner, I just drafted Renardo Green, I want to keep him around. Now I'm going to draft another cornerback, first round, high. This is a guy that's going to be a fixture in our organization. I just signed Diamador Lenore. I think you're good. And if you follow some of the blueprint of some of the other guys, right, the Cleveland Browns, their defense has been able to hold up a lot. Well, primarily because, man, they had 3 good corners, whether it was Denzel Ward, they had Greg Newsome, they have Emerson. All right, those guys, they played very well. They put a lot of resources into the back end. I think some of that allowed guys like Myles Garrett to eat. Now, Myles Garrett, he probably eat regardless, but having legit corners, legit guys that can truly cover, guys that are shrinking the field, right? Shrinking the windows that quarterbacks are trying to throw into. It just makes you better. And when you look at the 49ers, what's everybody saying? You need D-line. You need more edge. You got to get better in the middle. I think you got to get better in the middle for different reasons, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment. But I'm not opposed to the 49ers drafting Will Johnson at 11. Is it the biggest need? No, but again, I think at pick 11, you go for best player available. You start reaching, start drafting guys with bad knees. And I don't know if I should say that about this guy because he has a bad toe, and we'll figure out what's going on with that. But we saw the Javon Kenneth thing. They felt like they needed a defensive tackle. I felt like they had one in Eric Armstead. They wanted to keep Eric Armstead on the outside and slide him inside. So they drafted Kinlaw. We know he had a bad knee, and it never quite got better. But Kinlaw, years later, just got paid big bucks by the Washington Commanders. So maybe it wasn't a bad pick, just not a great pick for the Niners. Missed a lot of time. All right, just missed a lot of time. All right, next up, who did Mel Kiper select to the 49ers in the second round? All right, in the second round, we're going to discuss that and much more coming up right here on Locked On 49ers. Let's go. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, the NBA playoffs are almost here. FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on action. What action, you may add? Well, I'm talking about the action of, the Los Angeles Lakers. Actually, I don't even want to talk about my Lakers right now. They got dogged by the Oklahoma City Thunder. They won the other night. They lost tonight. But anyways, I know there's more Warrior fans. So if you want to get in on the Warriors action, what you need to do is right now, when you join FanDuel, place your $5 bet to get your $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. All right. I love how FanDuel, they make it super easy, whether it's picking your favorite team, the Warriors and Steph Curry, or, driving into the lane. And now you can drive into player props. All right. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, which Steph Curry, he does it all. FanDuel has many ways to bet for your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live props bets into same game parlays for a chance to win big. So right now, don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus today, right now at FanDuel.com. All right, let's go to Mel Kiper's second round pick and see what he had to say about that for the 49ers. And with the 43rd overall pick, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. So the 49ers go back-to-back Michigan guys in Mel Kiper's draft. All right, and Kenneth Grant, he's a big guy. All right, Mel Kiper went on to say this about the pick. Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins were released. Grant would clog up the middle in their place. He's a 6'4", 331-pound defensive tackle, and he has explosiveness and good instincts to his game. Hitting on day 2 picks would help San Francisco replenish this roster and remain a contender in the NFC. Grant has the potential to immediately contribute in a big way, and that's a big guy. Now, if there's anybody, if you've been listening to me for years, all right, if you've been listening to me for years, I have been begging for the 49ers to get just that big guy clogging the middle, being able to just stop the run, not getting moved out of there. And that hasn't been the 49ers philosophy. They've been more on the lines of getting those guys that can, slice in right now, more penetrating guys, right? Like Hargraves wasn't a big guy. Hargraves wasn't a big body that was just going to be super stout against the run. I thought maybe you can get that with Javon Kinlaw, but coming out of college, he was more of a pass rusher, and he tried to use power to pass rush. But as we saw, whether it was the knee, some of the other things he was dealing with, he wasn't great against the run. And the 49ers have been missing that. Matter of fact, they had Eric Armstead. He was terrific, but since Armstead, who's just been that dominant guy that really helps the 49ers? And I can think of defensive tackles in the past where I'm like, man, I would love for the 49ers to get that guy. And they didn't get it. They just don't like that type of guy. So they got Grant. And we got OBN2 in the chat. He says Grant at pick 11. Oof. Nope. This is Grant at pick 43 overall. It was Will Johnson at pick 11. All right. Will Johnson at pick 11. So, again, this is a big guy, and you're looking at how he helps the 49ers, and he does. I'd say this, right? If we're talking about the first two picks, and we'll get into Grant and more of what he brings. But if you draft Will Johnson and then you follow up with Grant, excuse me, I think that's terrific. I think you're finding two starters, and that's what the 49ers need. If you go back a couple weeks, owners meeting, right? You had Kyle Shanahan, and he's talking about the 49ers and where they're at, where they've been in the past as it pertains to the draft. And they weren't a team that just needed to find starters. Now, I I don't know if they were just swinging for the fences and just trying to see what happens. The wording of it was a little maybe I don't know too honest. I still trying to figure out exactly what he was trying to say. Oh man, we're so good. We can just draft whoever, including a kicker in the third round. Maybe that's what he's saying. But I think you should always be trying to find, man, most talented guys, best player available. Let's get better. Let's create depth. Even if a guy isn't a day one starter, can he grow into one? I think they found some of those guys. All right. But Will Johnson, Grant, those are day one starters. Those are guys coming in. And that's what the 49ers need. They do have to replenish this roster. Here's where the 49ers are in a little bit of the trouble. And we've talked about this. I'm locked on 49ers. Shout out to the everydayers out there listening. The 49ers are in a spot where they are getting older, and they are getting older fast. And the guys that you've counted on to really kind of carry the team, they're either older or injured or older and injured. And that's not a good combination. So you have to go out there and you need legit starters. If you told me right now, man, you got a starter to go with Deommodore Lenoir and Ronaldo Green, and I love that. Man, you got a starter to go with Nick Bosa and whoever the hell they have on that defensive line. They need to find some depth. I wouldn't even be opposed to the 49ers going edge with the first pick and defensive tackle with the second pick. But again, okay, we're working layers here. 49ers, they need linebackers. They need guys at a lot of spots. And we're talking about need. Okay. I like D Winters. Is he Dre Greenlaw? And if he's not, can you continue to go and find somebody that you feel like is closer to that caliber of player? The 49ers have a big task this offseason, and they have to get younger, and they have to get younger fast. I think with these two picks that Mel Kiper made for the Niners, I think you're saying, well, what about offensive line? And one thing about this draft, right, where they did take Grant, and I don't know who was on the board when he was making the selections, but they took Grant in the second round. Could they potentially draft for offensive tackle? Did they not like any other offensive tackles that were there available at 11? And we say offensive tackle, but we're talking about a guy who potentially could play guard, come in right now, play guard for the 49ers, be the best left guard on their roster. And when guys inevitably leave, like, Trent Williams, at one point he will retire, or Colt McKivitz, maybe he starts another season, has a really good year, and you're like, do we want to pay him $20 million a year? Because that's what Aaron Banks has got, right? Aaron Banks, he got a ton of money. Jalen Moore, he went to the Chiefs. He got a ton of money. I continue to hear a lot of people talk about the offensive line, and I'm not saying the O-line is not an issue, but I just think it's a little bit more difficult to address. And when you see guys like Aaron Banks get the money he got, and you see Jalen Moore get the money he got, clearly the NFL is telling you there's an offensive line shortage. So a lot of people think that when it comes to Brock Purdy and oh man, the O-line, he'd be even better O-line. Well, everybody wants a better O-line. So you kind of just have to figure out how to play around that, because if there's no bigger indication of offensive line being an issue around the league, Aaron Banks getting paid what he did and Jalen Moore getting paid what he did to come in, a guy that's been a swing tackle for the Niners, and people saying tackle is an issue for the Niners, and he just got paid legit money to go to Kansas City. It's a shortage there. So we're the right guys there for the 49ers to draft at tackle at pick 11, and maybe it's not, and you don't want to reach. So, man, let's take best player available. That's Will Johnson. You circle around second round, and you say, you know what? Yeah, we would love to get offensive line here, but the right guy is not here, a guy that we feel like is going to come in and start. But, hey, let's take this defensive tackle right here who will be a legit tackle. All right, and a starter for the Niners. We got a comment right here in the chat, and it says, "Do you see more BJ Raji or Dexter Lawrence in this game?" Dexter Lawrence is an interesting one because when he was coming out of Clemson, he was a guy that I really liked to the 49ers in the second round. And the Giants said, we're going to draft him with the Odell Beckham pick. Remember, for the Giants traded a first round pick to, excuse me, the Cleveland Browns traded a first round pick to the Giants for Odell Beckham. That was pick 17, if I'm not mistaken, and Dexter Lawrence went there. I would love for him to be Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter Lawrence has been terrific. When I talked about me like just clamoring for the 49ers to get that just a big clogger in the middle, it was Dexter Lawrence. And let me look at Dexter Lawrence because I feel like Dexter Lawrence hasn't just been like a good tackle. Like he's been like really good. All right. And he's been productive, not just in the run game, but also in the passing game. All right. So Dexter Lawrence, here's some of his stats. All right. He was drafted 2019. A little bit of a slow start. I don't even want to say a slow start. Again, he's a defensive tackle, but he's had some monster years. 2022, 7.5 sacks, 68 tackles. Last season, 9 sacks from a defensive tackle position, 44 tackles. 9 sacks for Dexter Lawrence, who they call Sexy Dexy. All right. Sexy Dexy. 9 sacks. All right. 30 career sacks. Like, that's legit for a defensive tackle. Now, I don't think we're expecting Dexter Lawrence to be Aaron Donald, but to get a big body like that who is stout versus to run and then get that type of sack production from him, I mean, I was expecting kind of more of what it started out at, which was 2.5 sacks, 4 sacks, 2.5 sacks, and you're good with that. Like, all right, like, well, he's not a pass rushing tackle, but then when he starts getting those 7.5 sacks, 4.5, then 9, if the 49ers were able to draft Grant and get that type of production out of them, oh, the 49ers are set up good. The 49ers are set up good. All right. So we are definitely going to continue to talk about the 49ers. We have a question right here. Is Johnson elite though, Crock? We're going to talk about that and more questions that y'all may have right here on Locked On 49ers. All right, here we go. Another sponsor of the show is Chewy, and you've probably heard of Chewy. They do a really good job of keeping your pet happy. We got a little dog, Romeo. Romeo, he's always happy. He's happier because we always have this box of Chewy that shows up at the door. So whether you're shopping for food, treats, healthcare, little toys, Chewy makes it very affordable. With over 100,000 products from all of your favorite brands, Chewy has everything that your pet needs, from food and treats and toys and beds and grooming. Heck, they got everything. Our dog, if he doesn't have his toys, or if Romeo does not have his toys, he starts chewing up all kind of stuff. I got shoes laying around, he'll chew on that. I had to buy a bunch of different mic covers. Somehow, I don't even know how he did it, but he got on my chair and he started chewing up our mic covers. So I said, babe, we got to do something. This dog is driving me crazy. I'm either going to kick him out or he's got to stop chewing up stuff. What really helped him stop chewing up stuff was that box of Chewy that shows up at our door. All right. It's fast with the delivery. You know, it has a great interaction with Chewy's customers when you call in and you need help with things. All right. So again, Chewy has everything that you need to keep your pet happy and healthy right now. You can go and save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with the new free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. All right. Terms and conditions apply. See the site for complete details. It's going to make your dog happy as well. All right. All right. That's Chewy. Make sure you guys go check that out right now. All right. I see Ryan in the chat. He says Xavier Watts. We're going to get to Xavier Watts, but first let's talk about this question in the chat. And it says, is Johnson elite? And that's the thing. I think as it pertains to elite, especially with the cornerback position, I think you want to know there's a certain athletic threshold that you would like your guy to have. That typically just costs you money, but it also definitely changes how you're viewed. And because we don't know exactly how he ran, right? And this doesn't mean that he's not going to be good at the NFL level, but when you're just talking about, man, is he elite prospect? Is he, JC Horn? Is he Patrick 10 as a prospect? It's hard to know that. Like, those guys were viewed as kind of elite prospects, and they have been paid as such. Two of the highest paid guys in the NFL right now. JT Horn just got a huge extension. Pat Surtain, huge extension. We love those guys when they were coming out of college. Do we love Johnson? And do we feel he's elite? And I think if you knew how he ran, you would feel a little bit more comfortable about saying that he's an elite prospect. I think Johnson is a really good prospect. So maybe we should just leave it at that. He's not elite, but he's a really good prospect. And if he turns out to be elite, that's a huge win for you. All right, another question in the chat says, my bigger issue is with their love for Brendel. He's their Rudy. They view things at the NFL level just different. And maybe they just say, you know what? He gets the job done enough. He's maybe a smart guy. Maybe he's a guy that just does what's needed to be done, and he points out certain things, and he helps the offensive line. He knows where to help this, help that. He's not, goddamn. Was Zach Martin a center for the Cowboys, or Fredrickson or whatever, right? They had like a legit center for some years. He ain't that. But can you get by? And again, this goes back to what I was saying about offensive line play. It's not good. So what's the answer? Are they trying to get better than Brendel? That should be the question. And I would say they probably ideally want to get better, but maybe they're just comfortable with him. I think that was the same conversation with Mike McGlinchey. They probably saw Mike McGlinchey. Would we love to get better than Mike McGlinchey? Sure. Is it easy to get better than Mike McGlinchey? I think that's a little bit more difficult. And as you see what Mike McGlinchey got paid when he hit free agency, it's like teams value these guys. Like, the 49ers are losing offensive linemen that our fans probably would just want to throw away. And they are getting paid big time money by these other teams. Big money. Jalen Moore, big money. Aaron Banks, big money. Mike McGlinchey, big money. These are guys that 49er fans are like, get this guy out of here. And other teams are like, hey, we'll gladly take him because we have more of an offensive line issue than you. All right. So with Jake Brendel, I don't expect him to get money like these other guys. But I think the 49ers should say it's hard to get better than him right now. And ideally, we would love to, but we just can't. So do you draft a guy in the 4th round or 3rd round? Is there a 1st round center that you really like, that you feel like he's going to step in right now and be a better center? A lot of times the answer to that is no. So we'll continue to monitor that. But I think he may be there, Rudy. All right, we got Tom and we got Ryan, and they're asking about Xavier Watts. All right, in the 2nd round. Listen, we've done one mock here with me running the show, and I definitely drafted Xavier Watts. I love Xavier Watts. Now, the thing I don't love, and it kind of, right before, matter of fact, it might have been the day after I did the mock here live on this show. I thought, man, I'm picking guys, and I'm like, man, I'm cooking right now. All right, 1st round, I'm cooking. 2nd round, 3rd round, I drafted Xavier Watts. I love the player, especially on film. And then he goes and he tests. And it did not change if I liked the prospect. But it did. There were a couple things that were like, yeah, I would kind of go a different direction at 43, unless some of these other guys are going. I just have to draft him. But Xavier Watts ran a 4.56, which isn't terrible. It's not terrible. Like, cool. Like, I think at safety, it's fast enough. But when I think of some of the safety prospects that I've really liked over the years, right? And Juan Thornhill, 49ers had a chance to bring him in. They didn't. He started a lot of games at the NFL level. I loved Juan Thornhill. And he was the guy that went 2nd round. So if I'm comparing Xavier Watts and Juan Thornhill, it's like I have like Juan Thornhill up here, and I have Xavier Watts, he's getting up there. But, if we're talking if we're talking about just 2nd round picks and how much I like them, there's a difference. And Juan Thornhill, he ran like 4.45. He jumped out the building, over 40-inch vert, right? He was explosive. You watch his film, he showed the same type of versatility as Xavier Watts, being able to play multiple spots. Man, he could line up outside. He could line up in the slot. He could line up over 2. If you want him in zone, he's matching guys vertically. He play in the box and be able to play against the run. Like Juan Thornhill, I loved him as a prospect. Xavier Watts, I really like him as a prospect. I really like him. So, again, if you're telling me this is the best player available for the 49ers right now in the 2nd round, I would gladly take him. because I think I'm in lockstep with the 49ers. I don't think they know about Jair Brown. I don't think they know about Jair Brown. I think they like Jair Brown. But when when they start bringing guys off of cruise ships who haven't played football in I don't know how long, and then like you're coming in and you're going to start over Jair Brown and kind of doing this back and forth yo-yo thing, and then you see our guy why am I blanking on his name, right? Talanoa Hufanga, our guy Talanoa Hufanga, he's ready. All right, he's back, he's healthy, man. I think they're trying to get Jair Brown. Not that they're trying to get him out of there, but I do believe that if they can get better than him, then they would get better than him. And I think Xavier Watts is a better prospect coming out of college. Now, both high interception guys, both guys that are prone to take the ball away and have a knack, a nose for getting to the ball. But Xavier Watts, I thought he showed a little bit better versatility. I think you could do a little bit more with him. And he's not quite Jimmy Ward, right? You're looking for, ideally, you want that Jimmy Ward guy. And he's not that, but he's a good prospect. And at Notre Dame, they relied heavily on some of their secondary guys, and I really like that. I really like them. So, if you told me now here's the other thing, right? How do you want to stack this team? 49ers got to get better in the trenches, but right now, in this mock for Mel Kiper, he went Will Johnson round 1. And if you followed up with, all right, Will Johnson round 1, Xavier Watts round 2, at least we know you got your safety and your corners and you got all that locked up for the long term. Especially when you look at Malik Mustafa and all the other guys. Like, your secondary is set and you're really young. So I would like that, but I don't see the 49ers going that direction. Not saying it's not possible, just a little hard to see. Kind of hurts the team speed. I feel you, right? So Ryan's talking about Xavier Watts running a 4.56, 4.57, whatever he ran. And not only did he run that, he ran that at his pro day. So you would like to see a faster time at the pro day. But also, he ran it with his shirt off. And I'm like, he got a little bit of bad body going on. Now, again, that doesn't mean that he won't be a good football player. I was with the Jets for a bit, and I remember seeing Darrelle Revis. I remember thinking, does Darrelle Revis touch the weights? It didn't matter if Darrelle Revis touched the weights or not, because Darrelle Revis was just the most technically sound defensive back I think I've ever seen. And what they asked him to do on film was remarkable. And I don't know if we'll ever see anyone else do that. People talk about CB1. What I saw on film, right, because we're watching all 22. A lot of times what you do, when you get with a team and they're going over defense and what you're doing and whatnot, they'll go over like the previous year's film. And we're watching, I'm watching Darrelle Revis, and they literally had him, when they talk about Revis Island, we won't see that no more. I don't know who has the ability to do that. Like, literally, we're going to play you man over here. You're locked up on the team's best receiver, where no matter where he goes, you are covering their best receiver. Calvin Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, Terrell Owens, Stevie Johnson, all these guys. Like, you're guarding their best receiver, and you are on an island. We're shifting all our coverage to the other side. I don't think you'll see that. All right. So, but again, I got on this tangent of him because we talked about kind of bad body, and I thought Watts is like, where's the muscle at? You know what I'm saying? Where's the muscle? And didn't run a great 40 time, but I still like the player. I like the player, and that doesn't mean, those things don't mean he's not going to be a good football player. Who was Croc's first round guy in that mock? Will Johnson was Mills. I F with that. It was Banks offensive tackle. Now, a lot of people didn't care for that. They liked the other stuff. They liked what I did round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5. Like, they liked all that. They did not care for my first round pick. And maybe that was me reaching a little bit too much for need. Maybe that was me, trying to appease the fan base a little bit. Maybe that's what it was. Ghost in the chat says, is Nolan worth a first? Yes. Matter of fact, one of the first mock drafts, I think it was Dan Bugler, he puts out the beast, and he had a mock. He had the 49ers drafting Nolan in the second. He had the 49ers drafting Nolan in the second, and he had the 49ers taking, was it Mimbo in the first? But now you circle back around, and I think that would actually be think 49 fans would love that, right? If you can go Mimbo and then you go Nolan in the second, that'd actually be pretty great. Omar says, "What are your thoughts on Shiloh Sanders? The tape looked good to me. I have not studied this film. I did watch a lot of them, and I did not care for what I watched. The one thing I did like is that he gonna throw his body around. Like he's damn near like he's like a linebacker in a safety's body, but you can't play him at linebacker. If you told me he was a linebacker, I'd probably love him. If you added 20 pounds to him, I'd probably love Shiloh. But as a safety, I don't know. But he's gonna set the tone. He's gonna fly around. He's gonna hit stuff. Draft him in the 5th round, 6th round. I wouldn't mind that. But again, that's me going off of just things I've seen as opposed to really studying his film. And I can study his film and actually say, hey, maybe it's not as bad. Harmon better than Nolan. And Harmon is the kid from Oregon, defensive tackle, correct? We definitely talked about him, and I did like him. I think he looks like he's more of a bigger body than Nolan. You guys can kind of look that up for me. Nolan seems more of what the 49ers have kind of leaned towards with those penetrating defensive tackles. We'll see. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On 49ers. I appreciate everybody that tuned in and was live in the chat, man. We went live at 7 a.m. Shout out to all of you. I hope you got your day started right, got your coffee, got your Locked On 49ers fix for the morning. All right. And for everybody else, you will listen to the audio version, and Peacock and I will be back for Thursday's episode. Thank you for making this your first listen. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace. Locked On.